I almost said leave meeting.
What
What accident. Recording. Click.
Recording. I'm out.
No, it's going to be recorded. Like what?
Yeah. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and start the intro now.
Mhm.
All right. Hello and welcome to the Apostate's Playground. I am Phineas the Apostate, and I am joined today by a voice that you've probably already heard because I'm probably going to leave that in the final edit. Cece. Cece has been doing the summaries on the website for the episodes, and I twisted her arm and got her to show up on the audio track.
Hello.
Today is going to be starting off with Genesis 30. First, I did kind of an unannounced hiatus last month. I've been having some mental health issues, and I've been trying to get organization and everything else back in line. I think I'm going to try to get to a point where I can take like March and August off. And I modified bullet journaling a little bit to turn into a workflow journal, which is helping a lot more than the digital thing as far as speeding me up and helping me remember what it is I need to do. So once again, hopefully these things won't be an issue in the future, but I am really, really good at reasonably promising and under delivering. So we'll see. Genesis 30, which is the Bible section for today, starts off kind of intensely.
Don't all of them?
Yeah, I mean it kind of at some point Genesis turned just the horrible shit up to 11, and it hasn't come back down. But it starts off with, because Rachel's not able to get pregnant, her doing as has been done before her and giving her husband what I'm going to keep referring to as a slave to get pregnant. She tells Jacob, "Give me children or I'll die. I will die." And
that's intense. Like what? Why don't I don't no.
It does. It seems a little dramatic, but
it's very dramatic.
a little bit, because what you might not know is that not having kids means that God hates you because you're a bad person, because you're not able to fulfill your role because he closed your womb gates.
So okay, yeah, go on. Yeah, it's fine. You just answered what I was going to say.
Yeah, well, it's she did something wrong, according to the Jewish Women's Archive, and they say that they're pulling this from the Lamentations Rabbah, which is a Jewish commentary on the Book of Lamentations. It's the verse is meant to demonstrate that if you're childless, you're as good as dead. You don't serve your purpose if you are without child, because the God of the Old Testament is a feminist icon. And that is why Jacob responds to Rachel that he won't, because that would be him replacing God. That would be him giving her children when God has denied her children because she's a piece of shit, so she gets no babies.
That sounds like a catch-22.
It really does. There's an apologist, commentarian. What's somebody who does commentaries? Is there a word for? I'm going to go with commentarian, which I think I just made up. His name is David Guzik, and his idea is that it's because Rachel was a conceited bitch. The idea was pride, because if you remember, Jacob worked for 14 years expecting her as a paycheck before he was tricked into sleeping with Leah, and that means that they're married. So, yeah, that's what Rachel did wrong. What Rachel did wrong was that Laban tricked Jacob into working more years, which doesn't.
So basically, what Rachel did wrong was Rachel existed, is what I'm hearing.
Yes, yeah, pretty much. I mean, the Bible I have says that Rachel was the pay. Like, she was the thing. She wasn't treated like a person that Jacob was getting permission to marry. He ran up, started kissing her and otherwise assaulting her, and then demanded her as a paycheck, which somehow makes her vain. It's putting a lot on Rachel there, and they actually changed it after that. from a direct assertion and definite claim to it's likely that Rachel was vain and conceited. She knew that Jacob worked 14 years, etc. So they like tried to soften it by making it less deductive and just softening the logic behind it. Like
They tried to basically it's just they tried to erase what they wrote in ink pen with a eraser.
pretty much, yeah. And then they just wrote over it. Like they just kind of ruined the paper a little bit and then wrote over it.
Yeah.
There is a way to account for the fact that, Leia was she was just popping out kids. She was winning the competitive birthing. And
Mm.
Rachel wasn't able to have kids. And there's a very definite way that you can account for that using statistics, because let's make a boring book more boring, right? According to WebMD, the odds of getting pregnant for most people are 15 to 25% of a session of P to V boot knocking. And that doesn't mean that every 4 to 8 times you have sex, you get pregnant. Just like it doesn't mean that if you throw a dice 6 times, you will end up with a 6. Even though you have a 1 in 6 chance, you'd expect to get a 6 once. And that's because when you do something a small number of times, the odds of it not being as you predicted are much higher because there's unaccounted variables like physics and hormones and menstruation and
Then apparently how much God hates you. I don't know.
yeah, and the fact that like God hates her, and the amount of the horizontal monster mash that had to be going on at some point. Jacob is just shooting out dust, like, but it's the sample size. So when you say there's a 6, 4 to 6 to 1 chance or whatever of getting pregnant, when you say that the chances are 15 to 25%, what that means is when you blow it up way big, the numbers, you're going to end up with in that range when you take a large sample size, which is why social science and scientific studies use big sample sizes, because the bigger the sample size, the more likely it is that you're going to sort out those confounds. So the more times you send come screaming into the depths of your wife or your wife's slave, the more likely it is the odds will level out, which is a lot of words just to say that Rachel just hasn't gotten pregnant yet. So people spent 2,000 years writing fan fiction about how she sucks and should be dead.
Yeah.
And then the conversation gets gross, right? Because Rachel points out to Jacob that Isaac and Abraham had kids with their wife's slaves because they loved their wife so much that they did a rape.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, I can follow that logic. No,
Yeah,
no, I can't
no,
follow that logic.
that's an expression of love. It's the first anniversary is what is it, like China, and then it's like paper and gaudy flowers, useless jewelry, and then rape your slave. Those are the
When is the treat your wife nice anniversary? When does that come around? What was that, like 600?
oh, we're talking about conservative religion. That's not, no, she's
Right, right,
property.
right.
You don't have a, treat your shoes nice anniversary with your Nikes, do you? Like,
Silly me. Right.
I know you should know this. So
It's true. I am a woman.
yeah, right. That's what I'm saying. And also, women are the women at the Jewish Women's Archive who imply that that's a terrible segue. Who also women are women. And according to them, the fact that Jacob wasn't like, yeah, let me fuck the person you have the power to force into this, makes him a bad person. Because what he should have done is raped Billa and then prayed for Rachel to get pregnant during it.
That I have nothing funny to say about that. That's just so that makes such little sense. I don't
Well, it's
insert
because
joke here because I don't have one.
no, it's because women are cauldrons. You see, it's just magic.
Where's my magic? I mean, I don't want babies or anything, but like I could use the magic for something else. Like, how do I access the magic?
Oh, well, see, in Christian media, because you're a black woman, your magic is to at the third act turn, you give me all the information as a because I'm a white man that I
That's
need
right.
in order to change my life and make
That's
me a
right.
better
Yeah.
person. Yeah. So
That's
you have
I was wearing a
magical.
bandana earlier and everything. I'm
Yeah,
sorry. I probably should have
that's what
kept
it
it on.
is. Yeah,
Yeah.
you should have. You should feel
Mm-hmm.
terrible about that. The big
Yeah, I'm
medallion,
sorry.
big
I'm
like
really sorry. You're never going to reach enlightenment now.
I'm not.
My bad, man. My bad.
You need your bandana or a sarong, I guess, and a big crazy pendant, like like if Flavor Flav was a wizard, like that kind of. This is an audio medium, but the look I just got.
It's like, what? Where are you going with this? I was like,
I'm
what
going in.
reference is this? And now we're like on to Flavor Flav, and it's like Flavor Flav was not considered a magical Negro. I don't understand where we got here. That clock was not magic. That clock was not magic.
That's not what VH1 thought for their ratings.
And in the back of my head, now I'm just gonna have Flavor Flav in the back, just
Yeah, no,
forever.
that's what I'm saying. It's if Gandalf did blackface and then joined Public Enemy. Like you need to go for that aesthetic. That way, at my third act turn, you can save me.
Okay, I'll take a note. Sorry,
All right.
I thought I was.
The fact that like makes sense talking about Christian media, but sounds horribly racist out of context is fucking the worst part of like. That's gonna be the worst part of the episode. um. Anyway, raping your wife's slave. So eventually,
There's no segue for that. There's no segue to work that out.
there isn't. I meant, how do you go from minstrel show Gandalf to this insanity that I'm just going to read to you what I wrote. Eventually, he relents and he goes ahead and says that Rachel can give him Belila to bury child on Rachel's knees. And that's when David Guzik wrote something that I need a fucking citation for. Because I had been interpreting this whole time on my knees to say something like Rachel would midwife, right? She'd take the kids, she'd be crouched down on a rug or mat of some kind and would catch. Because given the environment, it seems to make sense that one of the things you would learn if you were a girl in the Bronze Age is like how to midwife.
Delivery.
Like
Yeah,
like
midwifery.
you would start at delivery and then care for the child and then die, and then people would go, she had one function and she served it, and they were all nanny bots, and that's like how women are treated. So I just assumed that
Mm-hmm.
was something. uh yeah, like you learn to cook, clean, yell, push, and if it's stillbirth or anything goes wrong, then you beat the woman to death with rocks for harboring demons. Like
It's true. It's
that's
true. It's in my manual. I got the manual when I was born. It's in there. It's true.
yeah. See, all my manual said was open your knees really wide whenever you sit in a chair in public, just all the way. Air that shit out. And whenever you talk to a woman, start with well,
Women.
actually. Whenever you talk to a woman,
One women.
whenever you interface with the hive mind.
It's like a murder of crows. It's like a crowd of women, a single women.
It is. It's a murder of crows and a gossip of women. But
Ah,
there's only
yeah,
one because the hive mind.
yeah.
Yeah,
But you're not supposed to tell that though. You might have to edit that out later.
I might have to edit that out. I'm
Yeah.
gonna get
Yeah.
I'm
Shh.
beaten to death in my sleep.
The women are gonna get you.
The women,
Women.
all of the women, she will invade. Like, no, plural and singular is a lie. Like it doesn't matter. I read about it in a book. So
Mhm.
yeah, in Blue Letter Bible, Guzik says that in order to represent the fact that the wife is the wife, and even though Bila was given to Jacob as a wife, they're not actually married. It just means they did the mommy daddy dance, and you shouldn't do that with anybody but your wife, except for the whole bunch of times that's already happened. So when Bila gives birth, she's going to sit in Rachel's lap and lean back, and that will do a magic, and it will be Rachel's baby then, and also possibly while they have sex, to symbolize Rachel's ownership of the child.
There's a scene in The Handmaid's Tale.
Oh, okay. Yeah, there's lots of those.
Where did you think I was going? Oh, okay. I mean,
there's
I was like, where did you think I was going?
There's lots of those scenes. One of them is going to be the theme for my new Pornhub channel, which is just going to be On the Knees, which my wife won't be enjoying at all.
On the Knees with Phineas, which almost sounds like a weird news channel. No, there's a scene in the Hulu show Handmaid's Tale, and I guess the handmaid, but like it basically involves the handmaid and the guy, I don't remember what they're called, and then the wife, and the wife is like present, and that's what that made me think of.
Yeah. There's a lot of misconceptions around what Margaret Atwood wrote The Handmaid's Tale about.
Mm-hmm.
But largely it was this kind of shit. Like largely it was about like, no, society organized, theocratically is fucking bananas.
Yeah.
Like she could literally just re-release The Handmaid's Tale as I fucking told you, you didn't listen to me, but I fucking told you. And it would make sense. Like that would track as a title.
Yeah.
So all of that happened, all of that handwife's tale tomfoolery. That's not a good way to refer to it. And Bila got pregnant. So she had Dan, which means judgment, apparently, because God has judged my case and he has also heard my voice and given me a son, which is a thing Rachel said, which is another fucking bonkers citation needed tag. Guzik quotes a guy named Barnhouse that who said, can a woman get so low that she will hit her sister over the head with a baby? Rachel did. And I can't find that quote anywhere. I can't figure out who Barnhouse is. There's no citations or bibliography or appendix. I just don't know what the fuck that means.
The only thing I can think of is a really dark and confusing implication. So
it is a dark and confusing implication. Like the implication is that Abraham and Isaac both did the thing that Jacob just did. Like those are the three patriarchs we've established so far, and they've all done this same thing.
Yeah.
But because Jacob was tricked into having a wife he didn't want, which is another weird implication from like reading about this from a modern day evangelist who's like, no, one man, one woman, parentheses, her sister, but that was then. Like it's a little. So like the implication is that Rachel making Bila be an incubator and birthing machine somehow wrongs Leia, which doesn't make, like, Bila is the victim here.
Yeah.
Like Bila, and to a lesser extent Jacob, is a victim here. He was tricked into marriage and children and things he didn't want, and they get a little abusive towards him near the end of this. So the story so far, right? Leia's had multiple children and she's the first wife and is just kind of like cranking out sons. And Rachel is sad and forcefully pre-adopted a son from a concubine, and that slights Leia. And it's not made any clearer by the rest of it. It just doesn't. It doesn't explain it at all. Yeah, like it's clearly a myth that was written that like there's a lot of context that was just assumed you already know, which as established in already in this podcast. And then I recently picked up the Oxford Study Bible, which is like 1,000 pages of Bible and then 1,000 pages of Oxford scholarship, plus the Apocrypha. So that saves time for doing the Apocrypha. And like even that and the other scholarship I can find says that the Bible was likely written by four different sources. The Pentateuch specifically was written by four different sources, all put
Mm.
together. So when it comes to things like this, I think there's a little bit of that coming through, where
Oh,
like,
maybe.
yeah, where it doesn't make sense, or it's like a cultural thing of like, got people who were in Syria and people who were in Egypt had different societies, because when your fastest way to get around was a camel, like that was a really long way apart. Like I said before, it's right now it's just 2,000 years of fuck Rachel fan fiction.
Mm.
Um, but Rachel goes ahead and gets pregnant. Well, Rachel doesn't. Rachel goes ahead and makes Bila get pregnant again. And that kid's name is Naphtali, which means wrestle, because it's the quiet part out loud. Like this is literally just competitive birthing. And Rachel then declares victory, which
Yeah,
I
that's how it works, you know?
yeah, I don't understand. I don't understand that either. Right? We both have sisters, um, and half of us have children. So I assume
It's not me, it's him.
I win. Like, oh,
You can
it's
have it. You can, it's fine. I'm
yeah,
good.
right.
You can win.
I don't even
mm-mm.
want that. Are you sure? Are you sure? I'll mail them to you.
Oh, no, 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 no,
I
no,
haven't.
no, no, no. Be my guest. By all means, you can
I
have the
will.
award.
Oh, I thought you meant mail you my kids.
No,
They're getting to be a lot.
you'll never know where I live if that's the case.
I
Mm-mm.
don't. I don't need to. I'll just. I know. I'll just write your name in a city and put them in a crate and leave
Oh
the
my
crate by the
God.
mailbox.
You can't,
Like,
you can't.
I'll put holes in it and one of those, like a really big hamster bottle, and Cheez Its and Cheerios. They'll be fine.
hmm
Yeah, it'll be great. So the weird part about the commentary here to me is that Guzik thinks that the weird part of that is not the fact that what it's the fact that Leia had four babies, but
hmm
Rachel had only had two babies. And so Rachel wins. And he doesn't understand the math there. And I don't understand what the fuck he's talking about. Because, like, Leia isn't having kids anymore. And Rachel tagged in a concubine and is still putting points on the board. So she wins because she's still scoring, I guess. Like, I'm not understanding how this works.
No, somebody changed the rules in the middle of the game.
They had to have, right? Like, or like numbers were different then, you know, when 2600 years ago, two was more than four. I mean,
I
one, four,
mean,
three, two.
or just don't go into competitions like that with your siblings.
Well, you have to, you see, because Jacob was mad at Leia because he didn't want to marry Leia, but Taming of the Shrew rules applied, and the older one had to get married first. Um, and so Leia started having kids to not be dead or something.
Mm,
But now Rachel's had two kids, and so she won either somehow, or because Leia, like, the reason that Leia's not having kids anymore is because like Rachel damaged her when Rachel beat the shit out of her with Dan.
oh, yeah, I
Like,
forgot that mention.
yeah,
I
like
don't know.
that's the only other thing I can think of is
So,
like, and in my head it's like fully Cully animation style with one lady who it's been 14 years, so she's either 17 or 28, holding an infant by the ankle and just like beating Leia into sterility with a newborn, which is
yeah, I don't think
bananas
that's how it
imagery.
works. It really is. It really is.
But like, I need what I need is for like, Ram Bam, Flavius Josephus, like these guys wrote a lot, but they didn't write like the like competitive birthing association rule book and scoring guide. And that really would have cleared this up.
Yeah, how do you not document that? I mean, it's a whole competition. I mean,
Yeah.
you got to get the rules down on paper or
Like
tablet, I guess. Um,
something. I don't parchment. Did they write? I think they wrote on parchment.
Wall painting, I don't know.
I don't think it was. I think we had moved past wall painting by then. I'm pretty sure we had agriculture at that point.
Yeah, I don't know the timeline. I
I,
just we're talking about the weirdest shit. Like the baby whole like baby fighting thing of baby attacking whatever. So rules don't rules don't apply
yeah,
anymore.
that's super duper one of those ones where I'm like, I'm pretty sure this is a metaphor, but
What is it a metaphor for?
what is it a
Because
metaphor for?
what is it a metaphor?
This is
I
fucking
guess.
bananas. Like I can't figure it out. I want to figure it out. I'm here trying to figure it out, but I can't. Like I got nothing.
Maybe it's one of those things where the person says something and it doesn't mean anything, but they want people to think it's something insightful and inspired, and it really doesn't mean anything, and they're just hoping nobody catches them on it.
Yeah, that could be. I checked the Oxford thing too, and there's no mention about crazy birthing rules. So like Oxford doesn't know. And they wrote a whole Bible to go along with the Bible. So I don't
Bible
like,
squared.
yeah, not as good as intelligence squared. So yeah, in response to this loss somehow, Leia decides to give her, the book says maid, I choose to read it as slave, because when you can make someone turn out spawn for you, that's just sex trafficking and sex slavery. And the rest of
Yeah,
the
that's
section,
that's outside of the rules of what a maid should really be doing.
yeah, that is less made and more hands made. Like, and the rest of this section is Leia taking credit for Zilpa, her slave, doing a lot of work that she shouldn't have had to do, because God's morality is perfect and eternal. So at some point he should have stepped in and went, "Hey guys, this is fucked. Stop it." And this kind of carries on until the son Issachar is born. The next point of note in the story was Reuben was at our harvesting wheat like a good boy, and he found some mandrakes. So he took them to Leia, and Rachel asked nicely for some mandrakes because it was believed that they increased fertility. So she was still trying to not let the bench players score all the points, I guess. So Leia accused her of shenanigans because Rachel took away Leia's husband, that she tricked him into marrying her and then claimed ownership, I guess.
This soap opera just keeps getting more and more complicated.
It does. The more you say the storyline, the less it seems like the writers were in the same room.
No, they weren't even working on the same script.
Yeah. So Leia's mad because Rachel has already taken away Leia's husband and also wants to take Reuben's mandrakes. And we're told that the reason that they're not getting along is because God's original plan was for people to not be polygamist and to not marry sisters.
Mm-hmm.
Jacob is he's a patriarch. He's a pretty big deal. So like the example he sets is important. I think that if we regard this as a real story, which I kind of try to, because that's charitable, right? Like they approach this like it actually happened, even though it didn't, because people believe it did, and those people are wrong and hurt people. So that's what we're doing here. And in that mindset, it seems to me that this whole situation might be being caused in part because the whole thing is based on lies and insecurity, and everybody in it is a bad guy except Billa and Zilpa,
What?
which is
No, come
my idea.
on.
No, it's true. It's true. Everybody is evil in this story.
Hmm.
Yeah. And I think that's why it's not working out. I think it's got less to do. I think it's less to do with don't marry sisters and a little more to do with don't trick people into marrying people and then give them slaves because you can't have kids.
That's a bold theory there.
Swinging big.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, I'm probably wrong. It's probably just the sister thing. Yeah,
Yeah.
God didn't want you to be a polygamist. There you go. So in exchange for the mandrakes, Rachel, who everybody at this point agrees is a bad guy, but we differ wildly on reasons, offers to sell Leia Jacob's dick in exchange for the mandrakes, which creates a weird image because the next part of the story is Jacob comes home and Leia walks up to him and says, "Hey, I purchased you for the night." Like that's a conversation that they had in the Bible that is supposed to be like a holy perfect book. Is she just walked up and went, "Hi, husband, I bought you from other wife for some uterus jumpstart potato."
I, I don't even. I was a little preoccupied thinking, what was the exchange rate? I
I,
don't.
I assume it was one mandrake to one dick.
But then it wouldn't be mandrakes with an S.
No, that is true. So yeah, Jacob comes home and is informed that he's been prostituted to one wife by the other wife,
It's a hell
which,
of a. It's a hell of a con, like a decision, an agreement to make.
yeah, honestly, I think that out of everything in this story, this is the one that I have the least problem with. Like, I think this moment is the one where I'm like, yeah, that's probably fine, actually.
Yeah, from what I've heard, it's kind of the least of. It's the least criminal,
Yeah,
I
right.
guess.
Yeah, yeah. Like it's the least blatantly immoral. If I was married to two people or in a relationship with two people, and one of them was like, "Hey, listen, I know it's like your turn tonight to get some D, but I want the D," and then the other one was like, "Okay, well, give me a sandwich," and then I came home and the one was like, "Hey, I purchased your company for the night, even though it's not my turn because I want some dick," and like she didn't want to make a sandwich. Like I wouldn't. I'd be like, hey, okay, well let's run that by me before we turn me into a sex worker. But fine. Like I'm not. It seems the least morally dubious.
Well, yeah,
So
I mean, when you hold it up against all the other stuff, it's by comparison.
yeah, like I'm not mad about it. Mad about a lot of stuff, but not bad about this.
Hmm.
Um, and the last child mentioned in this section is Joseph of Technicolor Dreamcoat fame. Um,
Mm.
yeah, so we're getting to that point because we're reaching the last fifth of Genesis. Um, and Joseph is a sign to Rachel, who birthed him, presumably herself. Although it's not clear by this point, it just kind of runs all the vaginas together. And Joseph means may he add. And in the commentary, we're informed that this meant that she wanted to keep the birthing contest going, but the verse reads, "And she conceived and bore a son, and said, God has taken away my reproach. So she called his name Joseph, and said, the Lord shall add to me another son." Which I don't know. That just it sounds like she had sons that she had claimed had Joseph through her own agency, like with her own parts, instead of commandeering other people's parts. And it just reads to me like she's stoked about that. Like this is what her human value is tied to. So it just sounds to me like she's happy she gave birth and doesn't have to be dead now.
Yeah, I guess. I don't.
Yeah.
That um. Wasn't she winning the competition though? I'm
Yeah, it's confusing. It said that she won the competition, and now
Oh, maybe all those other ones didn't count. They weren't actual biological. Is and I guess, you know, only the biological matters. That's why so many people have issues with adoption, I guess.
I guess I don't know. Um, I don't really have issues with raising kids that aren't biologically related to me.
No, I mean most
Like,
decent people you'd think wouldn't.
yeah, I just it is confusing because she's like, hey, and if we add a lot to it, if we fill in a lot of gaps in ways that aren't just blatantly misogynistic and trying to save face for major male characters in the history of a religion that we don't belong to, it seems like what's happening is she couldn't have kids. She wanted to have kids. She kept trying to have kids. And now she's had one herself, which definitely fits with the theme. Because like Abraham had Hagar, no, Abraham had Ishmael via Hagar. And then when Isaac was born, kicked them both out into the desert.
I don't know. It gets so twisty.
Yeah, it's so it definitely like it's been made clear that biological children have preference,
Hmm.
and it's been made clear that Jacob feels that way also. Like he made it clear that by having the Dan and so on, that he saw himself as like trying to overrule God, who said that Rachel was a bad person for some reason. Yeah, it's hard. Like it, it doesn't try to explain it at all. The next thing that happens is Joseph decides that he no, after Joseph is born, Jacob decides that it's probably time to head back to Canaan. Frankly, I don't blame him. Laban, with what he did with Rachel, with Isaac, and he fucked around there with the like just being so happy that his nephew's kid, so his great nephew, great nephew, just like ran up and started macking on one of his daughters and was like, yeah, you can marry her. Wink. Actually, this one, like, he is a toxic influence in these people's lives. So
Yeah.
I don't blame Jacob for wanting to get out.
Hmm.
Like, Laban is just another bad guy in this story because the only people who haven't been bad guys in this book are the slaves.
Yeah.
Like, which kind of seems like when you have a social dynamic that includes slaves, like that's going to be just kind of,
Yeah, you're already off to a bad start.
yeah, it's not great. Because shouldn't do that. You shouldn't have slaves. God should
No.
know that. Not later
Yeah.
legislate not later legislate how to have slaves.
No.
Also contributing to the toxicity is Bible Blender, who tells us that the lesson in this, in all of this, is that God helped everything work out. He unbarrened Rachel. And
Mhm.
he did that because we're supposed to learn that if you are a less than happy couple, you should have hope that he can do the same for you because there's nothing so bad that God can't make it good.
Except for the things that God made bad himself.
Yeah. And even those. The metaphysics behind God actually making things good are um mind-bogglingly insane.
Hmm.
Like it like, yeah, he's all powerful and can make things good, but there's caveats. Like he's all powerful and he can make things good, but there's rules he has to follow, and there's and you see this all the time in the Bible. Everybody is being bad, so he can't just show up and say stop it. Right? Sodom and Gomorrah are lazy and or gay butt fucking, and so he has to destroy them. He can't just show up and go, hey, that's not what that hole is for. Everybody is being bad, and so he can't just go, okay, well, you know what, I'm going to forgive everybody. Clearly there's some like a bug in their programming and I'm just going to forgive everyone. He has to incarnate and be tortured to death. So like there's some cosmic rules outside of God that it seems like he has to follow. So like it really does kind of seem like there is a bad that God couldn't make good. It really does seem like God created an evil so evil that he cannot push the delete button, which makes it this more problematic, right? Because first off, it's a lie. And second off, it's a lie based on something that seems to be just a logically self-defeating, but it's
Mm-hmm.
also why people stay in abusive relationships. And it's what makes communities so insular that it lets religious leaders get away with abuse, because that's not just because all of this mess that is we've been talking about is part of God's plan. That's part of what God let happen for some bigger good. It makes it so that any terrible thing that's done is handled in house with prayer and asking for forgiveness and then forgiving yourself instead of contrition and actual change.
Yeah.
And this is a mentality I personally have had. Just pray and don't do anything, and all the bad stuff will magically go away because you wished it. And you were there. Like, it didn't go away because we've known each other forever.
Yeah.
I was an absolute garbage monster of a human being until I walked away from religion, until I realized that there's nothing God can do because God isn't real. And I had to find the bad situations in my life and handle them and process them myself. Like, so it's also backwards. Like, and because it doesn't work, because it can't work, right? You have to fix you.
Yeah. You have to actually take action.
Yeah. And it's we have people in this country, right? A few years ago, it was found that there was some fucking Kentucky swap meet in a church basement where people were going there and doing arranged marriages and trading out their kids into marriages
Ugh.
to keep the community insular, because you can't have them marrying out into sin. And so like religion and these ideas and just pray, because there's nothing you can do about the fact that you're 18 now getting married, but you're getting married because when you were 12 your parents were so afraid of sin that they went to like I said, took you to the swap meet and traded you out. Like,
For those mandrakes.
yeah, so what are you going to do? There's no bad that can't be made good with hope and prayer, right? So you just pray and be a child bride.
Yep.
It's disgusting and harmful, and it's what we're supposed to take away from a story about how people didn't get along after that time a child tricked an adult into marrying her older sister as payment for almost a decade of work for a guy who has been a piece of shit previously. Because that's what this story is. Like, that's what Genesis is about. It's about how everybody is a bad guy. It's the story of why when people say they get the morality from the Bible, that is a huge fucking red flag.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
and it's also time to go back to Canaan. This is also going to wrap up this chapter. To go back to Canaan, Jacob tricks Laban with animal husbandry, because why the fuck not? Jacob has been working with Laban's flocks. He
Mm-hmm.
designates a group that he wants because he's made Laban super rich. But he has to do some crazy breeding stuff before he leaves. So he took some special plants and he made some special equipment and he separated out the herds and he bred some to others and then some to other ones and segregated the flocks. So Laban ended up with really weak, frail, sickly sheep, and Jacob ended up with um, some really great sheep and goats. And he just left Laban the shitty ones, and he took all the good ones that he bred.
What an asshole.
With the way Laban's been acting, I don't blame him. Like Laban kind
I
of has it
just
coming. um, like it's been at least like 10 years since he was tricked into marrying somebody by Laban. And that
right,
alone, I feel like there's no statute of limitations on robbing you after
right.
that.
Yeah, I got mixed up in everything, and I was like, I forgot that was Laban was the dad.
Yeah, Laban's the dad
So
of
yeah,
Leah and Rachel.
I'm gonna have to write down notes next time or something with these names because
See, that's why I asked you to join. Is like I need this. I need those notes on air. Um, because I talk in circles. And I'm bad at explaining things. This is why I need you. Don't leave. Um, so everybody seems to think that the sheep thing is magic. That there was, magic herbs and magic things that Jacob did. And this is another weird misconception of motivated reasoning. I think people want it to be magic. They want it to be God magic. They want Jacob to have been blessed.
I need
Um,
something to believe in.
right. They need some way to substantiate that he is a patriarch of a family that eventually leads to Jesus, and so he's special and magical. I think the much easier and potentially real explanation is that after 15 years working with Laban's sheep, Jacob just got super fucking good at sheep. Like
Yeah,
he's from a family of shepherds and spent 15 years with this dude's sheep.
he
He
had a long time
probably,
to perform the con.
yeah, right. He probably learned a thing. So yeah, I mean that's Genesis 30. If there's a moral to the episode, it's that God can solve your potentially abusive marital issues.
But not. But then yeah. But then no, not really. But then yeah, sure. I mean,
And then your husband will leave your dad all the shitty sheep and go to Palestine.
and always be in birthing competition with your sister.
That's a good one. You only have value if you win a birthing competition with your sister.
I'm still the opinion that everyone loses in that competition, but that's just me.
I'm not allowed to say that, or people say I'm a bad parent.
I'm not a parent, so I can say what I want.
If
Boom.
if you ever want to have kids, don't. It's a trick.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that is also a lesson here because all of these kids were a fucking trick.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. That's. Mm.
There is one more bananas thing that happens in this chapter that is going to dominate the whole second half of this.
Mm-hmm.
It may not be as long, and it's been really tread on by atheist things before, because fucking apologists, young Earth creationists like to point to this as proof that the Flintstones is a documentary, and it asks, does the Bible ever mention dinosaurs?
Hmm. Wait, does it?
Yeah.
Because I don't.
Well, no, but let's talk about that now.
Okay,
Okay.
sure.
At some point, we'll write funny ads as an interstitial. I'm going to read a list of traits to you
Mm-hmm.
that come from the book of Job, because we just got done reading about a birthing competition in Genesis, and then the book directed us to dinosaurs in Job.
Yeah, I can see the connection.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
absolutely. Um, and you tell me um, how likely it is that you think it's a dinosaur. We're going to play a game.
Okay.
Uh, eats grass.
Oh, so I just say
Yeah.
if that's a dinosaur?
Yeah. Dinosaur eats grass.
Yeah, dinosaur.
Okay. Has strength in its loins.
Dinosaur.
Okay. Uh, Power in the muscles of its belly.
Dinosaur.
Makes its tail stiff like cedar.
I'm gonna go with dinosaur, but that
Okay.
that sounds impressive.
It is. We'll get there. Sinews of its thighs are knit together.
D- Um,
I've written in my
that just
note.
sounds like a that sounds like a mermaid.
I've written in my notes here. What? Um,
It sounds one that sounds like a mermaid, and two, we are very, very concerned about thighs and sinews. Like it's a lot of thigh and it's I got questions.
I have answers. Bones are tubes of bronze.
A house. I don't know.
A
A
house.
dinosaur. I guess dinosaur. I don't. This
uh,
is starting to sound less by like living creatures and more like built like artificial things or like the X-Men. I don't.
yeah, Colossus. Yeah, especially when I
Yeah.
get to limbs like bars of iron.
What is that? Doesn't really mean anything anyway.
It,
Like
really, at this point, I'm thinking
it
of
doesn't.
like,
It doesn't say it doesn't say what you can do or what you can withstand. It's like it just means like bars of iron. Like they look like iron. The coloring is like iron. It doesn't say you can like lift a lot or like withstand a lot. It's just
yeah, like at this point, honestly, like after that physical description, in my head, I can't help but picture the war elephants from Lord of the Rings, but like steampunk automatons, and it would honestly be a pretty good album cover. Um, like a The Cog is Dead album, that would be awesome. Um, Only God can approach it with a sword is the next trait we're given.
see. I want to answer, but I also want to just like ramble about it.
Ramble.
I'm assuming the answer is supposed to be dinosaur, but like, why does God have to approach with a sword if God is God? Why? Why is the sword the only thing that can take it down? Is he? What is he facing? Like what?
Well, only God can
That's not a
approach.
dinosaur. It's not. It's some kind of like. It's a Cthulhu.
Have you
Have
ever
we gone back?
seen a dinosaur and a guy with a sword in the same place? No. QED.
No,
Only God can approach it with a sword.
can't argue that point. I guess I have no proof.
Yeah, right. Because it doesn't mean anything. Um, Also, you've never seen a Brontosaurus and Batman in the same place, and Littlefoot's parents died. So, Land Before Time is Batman.
Hmm.
Yeah, that's the best logic that's been displayed so far. Uh, Lies under the lotus plants in the reeds and in the marsh.
That's very specific.
It is super specific.
A frog? I don't know. I mean, a dinosaur, I guess.
Yeah. Uh,
So-
the lotus trees cover it for shade.
Dinosaur.
Yeah, like dinosaur puppy, like surrounded by the willows of the wadi. The wadi is
This
a
is start. This is starting to sound like some kind of like treasure map guide. Like how you follow these identifiers to like reach the secret
okay.
in the center.
In defense of this one, it's the word wadi is an Arabic term that refers to a valley, or like a dry
And
riverbed. So like a
that
Grand
doesn't
Canyon kind
improve
of thing.
my
So
assumption that this is just a treasure map like to something.
it is a treasure map, but when I say that like it's a canyon with willows in it that this creature goes to, like it's a little less, you know what I mean? Like it's a little more. It is a treasure map. It's absolutely a treasure map. And when you figure it out, you know where Nicolas Cage hid the Constitution.
Uh, he can keep it.
Fuck that Constitution. Um, and
It's not worth it.
fuck everybody but that one guy. I can't remember his name. John something. He in the Federalist Papers. He wrote.
Hancock?
No,
I don't know.
no, he died before. He wasn't a founder, and he died before it was all signed.
I'm just calling off names now.
He was in Hamilton. John something. He wrote a bunch of the Federalist Papers. And was very
Part of the
like
problem is that there were too many Johns
it
at
was
the
a
time.
really
It's
common
a lot
name.
of John. Yeah.
No, like he was progressive enough as far as like race goes that like he probably would be pissed at like race in America now.
Hmm.
Like he was much closer to what we think of Abraham Lincoln being than Abraham Lincoln ever was, as far as like views on slavery and stuff.
Probably why you don't hear about him much.
Probably. I don't. The guy who played Alexander Hamilton's son in Hamilton played him in the first half of the musical. I don't remember. So the creature we're describing the creature Behemoth is what's happening.
Behemoth?
Yeah, and he is not afraid of turbulent rivers, which
A really big animal.
yeah,
Could
right.
I mean,
And,
probably an elephant also. I mean,
well, yeah. So God also asks Job if you can take it with hooks or pierce its nose with a snare.
Ow.
Yeah. Answers in Genesis, which is headed by Ken Ham, who debated I'm gonna say debated Bill Nye, but actually took Bill Nye the closest I think anybody's ever seen to straight murdering a guy. Like by the end of that debate, I assume you haven't seen it. And for any listeners who haven't seen it, Bill Nye looks directly at Ken Ham, who built the big stupid fucking Ark Park in Kentucky, and went, "Are you actually going to answer a question, or are you just going to talk about things you made up?" Like it's a pretty brutal takedown that Ken Ham keeps up on the Answers in Genesis YouTube channel. So the part of the idea is that it's an elephant. There is some idea that tail can be translated as trunk. That's another way to interpret it. Alan Steele with Answers in Genesis says that that's stupid because it talks about the nose, and elephants have trunks and not noses. Boo nerd.
I mean, are we now assuming that the whole thing is literal? Because
Oh
we
yeah.
thought
Oh
we
yeah.
were assuming a lot of that stuff was metaphorical
That's
or
because you have thoughts. No, we're talking about biblical literalists. We are talking about young earth creation, biblical literalists. Every every word in the Bible is true, and everything in the Bible that doesn't make sense is because we don't have the original manuscripts written by God himself.
God didn't write anything. God didn't God have like it he had like scribes, people who he told stuff to, and they were like, he told me to write the book, and so they wrote the book.
Yes.
So there's
And
no actual authentic writing straight from.
I think from what I've managed to piece together over the course of doing this podcast, that the idea is that there is an original Bible that like God was dictating copies of. So like there is an original Bible, and then God was dictating the copies, and as time went on, um it got more and more messed up. And the thing about that is it's fucking stupid.
Dude, just make a copy of the book yourself, or just give them the book and let them copy from the book. Like, why do you need to?
Yeah.
What?
There's also, so in Judaism, and this isn't off my notes or anything, in Judaism, when you make a new copy of the Torah, you do a whole bunch of practice Torahs that are ritualistically disposed of, and you do like a Jew magic spell when you do a new Torah scroll. and
Mm-hmm.
then you copy it down, and mistakes are like not tolerated. So in Jewish tradition, that doesn't make any sense. They didn't let you just like, oops, I wrote nose instead of trunk.
Yeah, like you could you treat like a library reference book, like have the person come in and sit
Yeah.
there with the book and copy it, as opposed, I mean,
We also know that people straight up added to and took away from it.
yeah, yeah,
Near the beginning of the podcast, I talked about the Septuagint and how there's some discrepancies based on the fact that like there was a Greek dude being an editor.
yeah, yeah.
So
I vaguely remember that.
yeah, I know it was 1,000 years ago.
Time
uh,
means nothing now, you
Time
know.
is a lie. Yeah, starting a podcast that it's weird I've been doing for over a year. Um, during a time in which researchers were like, our perception of time has altered in a way that we are doing new research on how our environment alters how we even perceive and interact with time as a concept,
Hmm.
um, is kind of wild. Like,
Yeah.
also a lot of med changes. So, a lot of changes in tone. But yeah, so the idea that it was an elephant has been floated since about the 1600s. Then the idea that it was a hippo has also been floated since about the 1600s, what with all of the underwater that it does. The young earth creationist argument, um, it hinges and kind of entirely on the bit about the tail. So in other places, the cedar analogy is used to compare things because something is very big. So the idea is that it's a big tail
Hmm.
that gets hard. Then, so their argument is like that can't be like anything we know about now. Not something of that size with a tail that big can be a currently extant animal. So they say that it's a sauropod, which are your big, long necked, long tailed guys. They also say that because of the proximity to the flood, which they believe happened like, I think it's 4.5, 5,000 years ago,
Hmm.
the global Noah flood, that they could have been smaller post flood because it would have been smaller dinosaurs taken on the ark, which they believe happened. Um, they also say that there's about 50 different kinds of dinosaurs only. To which my 9-year-old said, wait, what? No, that's not even close to right. So, like,
I mean, you lost me at dinosaurs on the ark, so
yeah, I mean, that's kind of where you'd think you would lose people.
dinosaur-sized ark is, yeah, you definitely lost me.
Yeah, well, an AIG says it's the other way around, right? It's not dinosaur sized ark, it's ark sized dinosaur. Um, because there is a maximum, like there's a point of like terminal size that an egg can be, because in order to maintain structural integrity, the bigger it is, the thicker it has to be. And you can do the same kind of calculations to figure out like the maximum like height something can be based on leg length, right? Um, and the biggest egg we've found is about 2 feet. So their idea is that Noah went around and got these 2 feet sauropods to keep on the ark. Um, because it couldn't be an elephant or a hippo because they don't have tails like cedars, which I reject for a lot of reasons. Some of those reasons are because one of the arguments they make is that all of the other animals listed in different parts of Job are real. So therefore, Behemoth and Leviathan, who's coming up in the next chapter, are real. Leviathan is a big sea monster. Um,
Hmm.
that's fucking bullshit, right? Like the Bible also mentions dragons and stuff. They claim that part of the argument that it was a hippo was based on the idea that there was an Egyptian word, Behemoth. I'm not going to be apologizing to any ancient Egyptian listeners who are offended by that, because I hope there aren't any, because I don't want mummy listeners. That's scary. But supposedly there's this word that meant water ox, but also supposedly that wasn't a word. The sources that they use when they talk about it are from the 1600s, and they say that the idea that it was a dinosaur is still relatively new, which is why people don't take it seriously. And it's relatively new compared to documents from the 1600s because dinosaurs were discovered in 1819. Like our knowledge of dinosaurs is still relatively new.
Mm-hmm.
There's also the fact that it was described like an automaton, and there's also actual facts about sauropods. They probably ate off trees, similar to giraffes. They may have ate fish, which Behemoth is supposed to be able to like drink all the water of the Jordan dry, but and sauropods were supposed to eat fish. There's no information I could find about the whether or not a sauropod had strength in its loins. I'm sure it did have muscles in its belly, and I'm sure they were powerful. There was a kind of sauropod, because there's a bunch of different types, that had a long, very thin tail that it would twist, and the idea is that it could snap it like a whip and use it like a weapon, but that doesn't make it stiff like a cedar. And I'm not sure, like nothing I could find would suggest that sauropods could do that. I couldn't find anything on its sinews being knitted together in its thigh. And
I don't know
and
who I don't know who would have figured that out anyway, because that would assume that somebody would catch one and then cut it open.
yeah, which also doesn't make sense because only God can approach it with a sword.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I couldn't find information on anybody having stabbed a sauropod for 65 million years worth of reasons. I'm not sure, like in an actual animal, I'm not sure what limbs like bars of iron mean. In a crazy steampunk giant automaton, I totally get it.
Mm-hmm.
But in an actual animal, I don't know.
It doesn't mean anything.
Yeah. Like if you had a giant lizard that was also cyborg from the Justice League, that's the closest I can get. Bronze bones, even if they were tubes, would be so heavy. And weight is part of that like maximum size thing. That's a
Mm-hmm.
big part of why there is a maximum size thing. But it is likely that sauropods had like hollowish bones. And part of that is air sacs, because that would have made them lighter and it would have made them easier to move around, which lies under the lotus plants in the reeds and in the marsh. Probably not, because of the air sacs, it would have helped cause them to displace less water than they weigh, which is how buoyancy works. So they may have like been kind of floaty. It falls apart at the lotus trees covering it for shade. Lotus trees are about 25 feet tall, and sauropods in some cases approached 90 feet tall.
Yeah.
So
There's also the whole thing about the cedars being so tall. Yeah.
yeah, surrounded by the willows of the wadi isn't convincing. Like, and it's not convincing because saying that something is standing in the middle of something isn't proof that it actually exists. Sauropods have been found in basically every region of the earth. They've been found on all 7 continents, including Antarctica, I learned. So like, yeah, there probably was one surrounded by the willows of the wadi at some point, before there was a wadi there, before there was the word wadi, because the Arabic people didn't exist to invent their language yet. But like, that kind of leaves you at, there's a claim that they were standing around something that actually exists. And I mean, at one point, Frodo was surrounded by trees, and Spider-Man spends a lot of time around buildings. So, like, you get 1 point.
Yeah.
You're not doing great. You know what I mean? As far as not being afraid of turbulent rivers, that also doesn't mean much, because, like you said, large animal.
Also, rivers have different sizes and different heights. There's a lot of bodies of water. There's specific things that they a body of water has to qualify to meet to be considered a river, but it's still quite a lot of different bodies of water that fit under a river. So it's like I mean, it could be like a tiny little trickle that you'd like step through, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I have gone and splashed around in a river in the last 18 months. It was
Yeah.
very turbulent in places. I wasn't afraid. I wasn't, because it also, I could stand in it. Like, so if I'm not afraid of turbulent rivers, am I a sauropod? I want to be a sauropod.
Who could tell you you're not?
Yeah, right. Ken Ham, apparently he knows what sauropods do. And he apparently also thinks that dinosaurs had unpierceable noses, which I don't even know how you begin to
What a
disprove.
specific
Like,
and strange detail to have to.
yeah, can you take it with hooks or pierce its nose with a snare? That sounds like, can you catch it fishing?
Like, oh, hold on a second. Let me go check. You know,
Yeah, right. But Ken Ham he asserted very strongly about noses, and it's like, I don't know how to rebut that. You can't pierce a dinosaur's septum. I mean, like, I don't know how to say, like, do I give an iguana a nose ring like an ox? Is that how you rebut that? Like, I don't, punk rock alligator. What do you do in that situation?
I guess it's one of those things that you say, and then nobody can. You can say it because nobody can claim that it's not factual because nobody can test it.
Yeah. The Oxford annotated Bible calls it an ambiguous mythical beast, says that it's dangerous and uncapturable, says that it's very powerful, but it just eats, fucks, and sleeps, and it doesn't have any discernible qualities or personality, because of course it doesn't. It doesn't show up anywhere else. It's they call it God's showpiece, and like, yeah,
I mean,
like it's literally,
the moment you say it's mythical, it's
yeah, and like it shows up in the book, because they love robbing these things of context. And I've debated theists in different ways, and they say, you're taking that out of context, but this is being used to prove that there's fucking dinosaurs. And what's happening here is Job is having an argument with God, and God says, like, hey, can give Behemoth a nose piercing and open Leviathan's face doors? Like, this isn't like a description of a cool thing Job saw. This is a fight he's having. So, like, yeah. um and like, in the Jewish Encyclopedia, which is an online version of the 1903, like, early 20th century um Jewish Encyclopedia, um it says very clearly that it's clearly not a hippo, because it's not a real creature, and that's stupid. Like, that's how they rebut it. There is a paper by Schopfung and Chauss that suggests the Jews plagiarized Tiamat and Aknu from the Babylonians for Behemoth and Leviathan, which also makes sense.
mhm.
That they would have shared stories. I mean, you see it in the flood. You see it in, you could possibly see it here. So, and it suggests that it could be based on a hippo for physical description. The same way unicorns are based on horses and dragons are based on different kinds of bat lizard hybrids.
Mhm.
And that's kind of backed up by a paper on the Debera Torah Kileshon B'nai Adam, which, if I read the paper right, translates something to the effect of the Torah speaks in the language of human beings, not of scientists. It has been used to explain by Rambam, who is a famous rabbi, different things that make God corporeal because he's supposed to be spiritual. The whole paper sums up, the central point is that the Torah expresses things that were believed or perceived or practiced by the multitude, that and not objective fact. So it's a book of folk tales and stories.
Mm.
There is a third interpretation that I really like, that is a lot more fun, and that's why I saved it for last, than Behemoth just being a big fucking thing people's told stories about, or a weird exotic animal that got all twisted up in passing, kind of like how supposedly the gazelle with the horn out the back of its head that it's thought might have been the basis for the unicorn. And that is a little grammatical. So going back to AIG, Alan Steele says that the verb used is yakpots, which is an imperfect form of kapots, meaning delight. Um, Brown, Driver, and Briggs say chapets is delight or take pleasure, and chapats is lower. And Kokler and Baumgartner say that chapets is desire and chapats is to make lower.
Sensing a theme here.
Mm-hmm. And so it would lower its tail, which does make sense. Like it is thought that sauropods would have like kept their tails kind of like a balance thing. They were actually very flat animals, because keeping your head 90 feet up in the air, even if it is tiny, so that it's not too heavy, is a lot. So they also speculate that because it talks about erecting, it could mean that the tail was lifted up high and would lower, which seems distinctly unsauropod like. You also get a lot of words like erect and stiff and those kinds of things when talking
Mm-hmm.
about the, in sarcasm quotes, tail of Behemoth. So when you keep in mind that at that time, vowels hadn't been introduced to the Hebrew alphabet yet, and the difference between chapets and chapats is an E being switched to an A, and all of a sudden your lowering becomes delighting, desiring, and taking pleasure. The word erect is used. The fact that its tail gets stiff like a cedar, it had power in the muscles of its belly, and it had strength in its loins.
Sure, sure.
It is sexually repressed evangelicals not getting a giant dick joke for 2,000 years.
Of course. No.
If you take all of that and just read it the way it is, what you're left with is a hippopotamus with a giant cock. Just the John Holmes of hippopotamus.
I knew we were going that way when it's like there's a lot of emphasis on the on like the sinews and the I can't remember the other word, but like yeah, just like the lower area and the terms of
Yeah,
like
a lot of loins and thigh and
loins, that's the word. Yeah.
power in the belly muscles, and you got that like I'm picturing like a ripped hippo where it's got that six pack and then it's got those hip muscles, that V, that's just like it's the roadmap to a good time with the like the stiff like a cedar, like they
Swole hippo.
swole hippo. So the four theories that we're left with is sauropod,
Mm-hmm.
mythological beast,
Mm-hmm.
plagiarism, hippo or elephant, or ridiculously hung hippo with a hard dick. I don't know about you. I don't know about the listeners, but it seems to me that the most likely options are plagiarism of mythical beasts or crazy boner hippo. And this story actually being about the rumors about the crazy boner hippo, because the
Crazy.
Torah, yeah, because the
Crazy
Torah
boner
expresses
hippo
things as they're
who
believed.
after crazy boner hippo after you've had a wild night or a fun night, I guess. So in very
Oh yeah,
specific, very very specific consumables.
yeah. Oh no, I could totally see it. Like if we know anything about the Sumerians and Babylonians, it is that they partied and saw a boner hippo and started telling all kinds of crazy stories. And now it's in Job. And God is telling Job, look, I'm super powerful. Look at this boner hippo.
It's really just somebody in a mask, hippo mask, some
Can you
swole dude
pierce
wearing
its
a hippo
nose?
mask.
Yeah, right.
So it's
It's Bronze Age furries. It just got out of hand.
sometimes you party just a little too hard.
That would be amazing. That's canon now. Behemoth is just a Bronze Age furry that people were telling stories about, and it got way the fuck out of hand because the dude was awesome, because furries are awesome.
Yeah, you know? Yeah.
Yeah. So no, we solved that mystery. This was a
Go
dry
team.
episode until the
Go
end.
team.
And I think we can agree that we're both wet. And the power of the boner hippo. And
Cece has left the no.
Oh God. No, that's what I have. The episode should be coming out more regularly. The breaks should be coming more plannedly. And I'm liking the A segment, B segment thing. And I might do a 3-segment thing if you or other people have questions about things we've gone over. Thank you for coming and trying out the idea of having an audience proxy that's listened to all the episodes but isn't particularly steeped in this crazy ass world of boner hippo myth and birthing competitions.
Yeah,
Uh,
I every time I keep learning something new each time with each episode, and every time I
right?
do, I'm like, what the fuck?
That's the
It's
goal.
like it's new ways of it's new levels of fuckery. And it's like when you think it's done, it's more. There's just more.
Right, that's the idea, to be the crazy bastard that doesn't just read and make fun of the Bible but actually does the homework on this shit. The next episode I am planning is going to be Genesis 31, obviously, at least, and chapter 3 of Theocracy, State of the Theocracy Address. So yeah, it will be Genesis 31, the return to Canaan, and Theocracy. I have been Phineas the Apostate. My Twitter is at the letter X Essential Panda. The email is poweredbyapostasy@gmail.com. The website is theapostatesplayground.com. And where can they find you, Cece?
Is my Twitter on the page?
Your Twitch is on the page. If
Ah,
this is gonna be a regular arrangement, I have to change the page, and I will be putting your Twitter on the page.
okay.
So
I mean, I'm barely doing Twitch. I need to get back to it one day, I guess. You can find me on Twitter, which is actually, I believe, the exact same username as my Twitch. So, there it is.
all right. Um, next
I don't
time,
do a lot of talking though. I like stuff, but I'm always back reading and basically imagine it's somebody slamming into your room at like 14 hours after you made a comment to respond to it with emotions. That's pretty much how I tweet. So,
that is what she does to me.
yep. Hmm.
So, and that's I think that's Twitter. I think Twitter is just a mixture of like mix between that and everybody standing on a street corner together mumbling to themselves.
Ah, yeah. Fair. Yeah. I
Yeah.
get it now.
So yeah, so that is it for this episode. If you have strong thoughts on a co-host audience proxy, be nice about them. This was a podcast debut, and if you're not nice to them, I will send you mean words about your strongly worded deletable.
I mean, I'll read hate mail sent to me. If you pay me, like if you give me money for it first, I'll actually
That's
my eyes on it.
I'm thinking about making that a Patreon goal, or like a Patreon tier.
Yeah.
You pay $300 a month, and I'll read the mean things you say about me. Just set it up. I've already paywalled people on Twitter. I've told people, like, I'm done with this conversation. You're just making up random crap and being mean. So this is my PayPal,
Yeah.
and you can pay me $100 and I'll keep talking to you. Okay, I'm gonna turn off the recording now.
Hmm. Almost hit leave meeting. What accident. Recording. Click.
Recording. I'm out.
No, it's going to be recorded. Like what?
Yeah. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and start the intro now.